One thing we haven't talked about, though, is the Hispanic vote, which we should talk about.
Which, absolutely, of course.
And that's one of the reasons that it's now tilting more and more toward.
As of this morning, a poll showed the president's got a 40-point lead among Hispanics over Governor Romney.
And for the three of us who came up through Texas, where Republicans had to be competitive to win a statewide race as Texas was transitioning, we had to be competitive among Hispanics. It's very disheartening to see what our party has done on the Hispanic front, both from a policy point of view and a tone point of view.
Yeah.
And the Romney campaign has made tremendous errors, first in 2008 and then making even worse in this primary season.
Yeah.
I don't know how he gets out of this box.
Right.
And for the long term of our party and the center-right cause, I have great concern because, for example, here in Texas, we're going to transition into a purple state. Demographics and math are going to make that happen. Hopefully we'll stay a purple state for a while, but we could swing all the way to a different color just because of how we've handled it.
So I'm going to just I totally agree with John on this. There's two huge, I think, problems with the Republican Party, and what happens, I mean, right now is what happens is they win elections, 2010, and Mitt Romney wins. They will take the wrong lesson, learn the exact wrong lesson, think they won the election because they were doing the right things or saying the right things, when the long-term trajectory, if they don't change it, makes the Republican Party likely a minority party in this country for two big reasons. Latino voters, as John said, huge problem. It's the fastest growing group of the electorate and it's caused places like Colorado and Nevada and Florida, who used to be reliably Republican states, to now be swing states and somewhat Democratic states. North Carolina.
Which I was surprised to hear from Chuck Todd this morning, had the largest Hispanic growth as a percentage of its overall population of any of the 50 states in the first decade.
There's a remarkable thing going on there, which is kind of below the surface, which is that I think Obama won that state, I think, by 12,000 votes.
Very close.
Less than 1 point.
14,000.
There have been 100,000 new registered Hispanics in that state since that election.
All right, so for all the talk of how the gay marriage stuff is going to be a net negative for him, the Latino population represents...
And the other thing besides Latino voters is voters under 30 years old. And voters under 30 years old is shown in 2008, and it started to show up in 2004. I remember in the aftermath, it's a traditional, you win an election, everybody says, oh, we did all the right things. And I remember looking at the data after 2004 and seeing that John Kerry won younger voters by 14 points, even though he lost the election nationally by 3 points. That trajectory, it's because they feel culturally out of sync with the Republican Party on many different issues, but they also, if you take a look at the economic data on voters under 30 and voters under 60, it's as if we're in two different worlds. The percentage of wealth that's now held on by voters over 60 versus voters under 30 is at an all-time record high, the discrepancy in wealth in that. And so appeals that feel like cut taxes and all those things might appeal to an electorate, an older electorate that has more wealth, but for an electorate that has few job opportunities, doesn't feel a lot of places in the future they're going to be better off. That dynamic, so you combine Latino voters and younger voters, and unless that changes, that is a dynamic that will create a minority party for the Republicans nationally.
Mark, you hear these guys talking about the impact of the Latino vote. I assume you agree. And specifically, I want to ask you about the states in which this is going to make the biggest difference, because in a close election and in a tight electoral map, even one that has an advantage for Democrats, whoever wins the kind of Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico portfolio is likelier to win than not.
Right? Yeah. Well, it's something that, as Matthew and John both alluded to, we're all pretty passionate about this issue coming from Texas.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that attracted me about George W. Bush, was his forward-leaning, compassionate approach on immigration and education and some other issues. But I remember clearly Matthew saying, you know, unless we got 40% of the Hispanic vote in 2000, we would lose. And then I remember 3 months later, after the president was elected, Matthew walked in and said, well, if we get that exact same percentage in 2004, we're going to lose.
It's not enough.
It's got to be 43.
Right.
And but it's not just politics. I think for reasons that I think most people share in this room, that it's the right thing to do on immigration. That it's got to be fixed, and that and to see. This is another thing that bothered me about Mitt Romney in the primaries. Is my guess is that he doesn't really believe what he said and did in the primary, the sort of thing that he did to Rick Perry.
I'm shocked.
for him to attack, Rick Perry, who passed legislation.
It is kind of funny, though. It's like Mark's, the asset is he's counting on Mitt Romney doesn't have a core.
But I mean, we can talk about what happened to Pete Wilson in California. I mean, Matthew's making the point that I think there's a real opportunity here and I've been arguing and writing a lot about it, and even visiting, making a trip to Boston, been doing a bunch of work with something called the Latino Donor Collaborative and done a lot of research. I think there's a real opportunity for Romney to embrace a proactive, specific immigration plan that gives him a greater context for who he is, what he believes in, what he thinks about America in general, but more importantly for him, it should tie to a macroeconomic message. I mean, the Hispanic population in America, if we're a country, would be the 11th largest country in terms of GDP.
Yeah.
So
this isn't about race. This is about economics.
It should be. I mean, I think that's how Romney can make that transition.